All right, welcome back. Let's talk about console logging. In the last lesson, we looked at JavaScript syntax. It was a big, scary lesson. There was a lot of stuff you probably didn't understand. That is A-okay. You do not need to understand all of it right now. We're going to get to it piece by piece. For now, we need to learn about console log, and we've seen this a little bit. So what I would like to do is create a new HTML file. So I've called this index.html. I have an opening script tag and a closing script tag underneath my body. So it's just above this /body tag, the closing body tag. And in here, we can write all sorts of JavaScript. And one of the most common things you're going to see is this thing called console.log. And that allows us to write anything in here. Now, if I save this, and I do file, open file, and I click index.html and open this up, we're going to see that nothing happens on the page, but in the console, it says write anything in here. Now, how you get here is you just right click on the page, go to inspect, and it's going to open up elements by default. Don't worry about that. Let's just head on over to console, and this is where your console is going to output your code. Or in this case, just the sentence that we wrote. Now, it doesn't just have to be console.log. We can also do console.warn. This is a warning. We can also do console.error. This is an error. Now, what we're saying here is access the console. That's this whole area. And this first one is saying log. Just simply write a message. Just log it out there. The second one is saying access that console. Then let's, instead of logging, let's produce a warning. So it's slightly different text. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And then we've got opening and closing quotation marks, and then a bunch of words inside of here, just like we did with the first one. And both of these, all three of these, end in a semicolon. That tells the computer, hey, this function here, this piece of code to execute is done. Go on to the second one. And then it gets to this one, this semicolon says, hey, this one is done, move on to that next one. And lastly, that next one is accessing that console. It's saying instead of log or warn, write some sort of error. That's going to give us red text. Again, same thing. We have our opening and closing quotation marks, and then a bunch of words, a regular sentence. We have our opening and closing parentheses, and then a closing semicolon. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go back to our page and hit refresh. And we see write anything here. That's what our log was. This is our warning. We can see it is a warning indeed. And in here, we can see this one is an error. This is an error. This tells us exactly what's happening and where it's happening. Index.html on line 12. If I click that, shows up right here. Goes to sources, index.html for us. That's pretty wild. We could also do the same thing. This is an error. Index.html on line 13. And it goes straight to the source code for us. So that is super, super useful. Very helpful stuff right there. If you're ever wondering where to get the log, same thing. Write anything in here comes from index.html on line 11. And I click it and it brings me to here. Again, I'm just using Google Chrome, but you can do this on Safari or Firefox or Edge. You might not have the right-click inspect feature. On Safari, you might have to go and enable that in your settings. You can either enable that in your settings or just open this up in Chrome and go to File Inspect, or open it up in Firefox, not File Inspect, but just right-click Inspect. Or you can always go to View, Developer, and Developer Tools. And oops, that actually toggled it off because it was already on. Developer Tools, there we go, brings that back. And then I just go to Console. And that is console logging in a nutshell. Next up, let's debug external files. So let's create a JavaScript file that lives outside of our document. And let's see what happens when we have a typo. And if it doesn't work for you, how do we debug this?